Welcome to the Summit of Chain Breakers, Shared Responsibility for Ethical Supply Chains, a part of the 2021 Sustainability Solutions Festival. We greatly appreciate attendance and support for this event. I'm Jessica Baer, an MBA student at Arizona State University studying supply chain management, and am the lead for the Chain Breakers. I'm so excited to welcome you to today's summit. This year marks the 8th Annual Sustainability Solutions Festival, a program presented by the Rob and Melanie Walton Sustainability Solutions Service at Arizona State University. Each year, this festival engages people like yourselves, general public, policymakers, and private industry leaders to help shape a more sustainable tomorrow today. This would not be possible without the generous support from our sponsors, Salt River Project, the Rob and Melanie Walton Foundation, and Arizona State University's Julie Ann Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory. If you're sharing any of this event today or other activities of the festival on social media, I encourage you to tag at ASU Festival and hashtag 28 Days of Good. And welcome to Remo. I hope you enjoy this new platform. Like an actual conference setting, Remo is a digital conference building that allows you to click and move at will to other tables and floors for networking. As you are now aware, the stage presentation is the same on every floor, so feel free to move and network. Also available is a whiteboard feature that we will use to view exhibit pieces later during the break and after the summit speakers. For more information on today's subject and speakers, please visit their tables. The table listing is available on the upper right-hand billboard. Available to you right now is the chat feature. I see that it's working. People are doing great. Feel free to seek guests out to introduce yourself or reach out to our event leads for help. The schedule is available to view on the upper right-hand corner on the calendar icon. The agenda for today's summit is the following. In a moment, I'll be offering my opening remarks for the Chainbreaker Summit entitled Exploitation in Supply Chains. At 9 a.m., Anna Moore of EcoBusiness will present Slavery in the 21st Century. At 9:30 a.m., our panel will be of Erica Farron of the Sustainability Consortium presenting their studies of benchmarking labor rights by industry, and Gabrielle Lau of Arizona State's School for the Future of Innovation and Society will offer insights into human rights abuses in the global seafood industry. At 10:10 a.m., we will have a gallery networking break with introduction to our seminar series speakers and Chainbreaker exhibits. Following the break at 10:30, Rob Letter, CEO of the Responsible Business Alliance, and Deborah Albers, Vice President of the Responsible Business Alliance, will be discussing the power of corporate alliances and available tools. At 11:10, Greta Matos of And Wider will be sharing responsible sourcing beyond audits, integrating direct worker reporting to drive social impact. At 11:40 will be our last panel of Michelle Sirocco, Chief Social Responsibility Officer for Televerde and Executive Director of Televerde Foundation, with Darren Chapman, Chief Executive Officer of the Tiger Mountain Foundation. Our closing speaker will be at 12:10 with Paul Schoonmakers and Yoka Ertz of Tony's Chocolonely. They'll be presenting Sweet Justice, how Tony's Chocolonely is creating just value chains. These sessions will be recorded for view on the Chainbreakers webpage later. After the summit, our series speakers on February 11th and February 18th, all Chainbreakers exhibits, speaker exhibits, and recordings will be available. We are eager for our communities to implement fair labor practices and hope you share these resources with others. We will have a 2-minute break between each session to cue speakers and allow for personal breaks. These are great opportunities to speak to your neighbors and at your table group, and we encourage you to do so. Often, sustainability summits are focused towards environmental impacts or economic trends, and rightfully so. But there is a social justice component of sustainability that is very delicate and difficult to understand, and thus left unspoken: exploited labor. The ecocide exploitation cycle is not a causation, but a mutual reinforcement as vulnerable communities are driven by desperation into unethical working and living conditions. The terms for this vary widely by country and culture, and I'll defer to our opening speaker, Anna Moore, to step us through with her expertise. But here's a reference diagram we can start with. 3 distinct situations are found throughout our research, and those are that they are unable to leave, they receive unfair compensation, and are dehumanized. This piece is detailed with references and explanation in our Chainbreakers exhibit, which will open during break, and I encourage you to visit it and other topic exhibits in our Chainbreaker gallery later. But as you can see, unethical labor takes many familiar forms that are in plain sight. Some terms you'll hear today are exploited labor, modern-day slavery, human trafficking, and forced labor. I hope that we seek to understand each other's views, and in the spirit of collaboration and learning, not walk away over one term. The history of unethical sourcing and exploited labor is in every country, demographic, and industry. It has existed for thousands of years, and it exists today. The crimes of forced labor are hidden in everyday objects like fish, produce, belts, shoes, smartphones, laptops, your COVID-19 masks, and the pharmaceuticals we all rely on. To give you a reference for the scope of this problem, the International Labor Union's latest report from 2017 stated that there are 40 million adults in modern slavery and over 152 million children in child labor. That exceeds all populations of people trafficked over the past 3 centuries combined. Through uninformed consumerism and the insatiable demand of goods, we permit unethical labor to exist and grow. For another reference, in 1850, a trafficked person's monetary value was around $40,000 in today's currency. That price in 2019 was $90. $90 for a person. In the wake of the pandemic, this monetary value could be much lower, as the pandemic has stressed great demand on supply chains and economically and physically displaced millions. Many reports list the price of a person so low that they are deemed disposable. None of these are acceptable. As consumer demand mounts, there is real stress and strain to provide products at low prices. Consumers do not fully realize that in doing so, they demand unethical and unsustainable products. There is shared responsibility for ethical supply chains by corporate and consumer alike. The one bright hope we have in all these statistics is that the percentage of slaves to total population was at an all-time global low in 2019. I attribute this to the actions taken by consumers, countries, and industrial leaders. Your efforts are working. And I hope that the topics and solutions discussed here today will further drive down that percentage and gain back the valuable ground we lost during the coronavirus pandemic. I left my previous career to become a supply chain manager so that I could help ensure ethical procurement. In my years of experience as an advocate, volunteer, and sponsor of survivors, I've grown so frustrated with the inefficiencies and lengthy timelines of cultural acceptance, legislature, and prosecution. I believe that businesses can drastically lower exploited labor. Businesses can end exploitation much more effectively and in less time through their own policy practices. I see that as deplorable as traffickers are, they're largely opportunistic. They're just actively seeking for a demand and looking for a demand. And with an unending supply of desperate people, it is more strategic to change the demand of these goods and services. Consumers can do that, corporations can do that, nonprofits can do that, but by working together, the change will be much faster and permanent. After starting classes last fall, I saw an opportunity to pool resources and industries into an abolitionist thought share. It was a topic people are aware of, but no one would discuss openly. Cheered on by ASU faculty and executive mentors, I sought to raise consumer awareness, support supply reform, and elevate corporate supply chains by creating an exhibit entitled Chain Breakers. I formed a committee with fellow MBA students and who wanted to see exploited change too. They wanted to see exploited labor change as well. And we researched, we interviewed, we studied as many topics on modern slavery as we could. We visited with survivors, companies, government agencies, and nonprofits who were making a difference on the ground level. It was humbling and empowering. I'd like to thank the Chain Breakers Committee, especially Kelly Saunders, Suzette Allen, Hilda Olson, Kevin Dooley, John Wisniewski, Amy Hillman, my fellow MBA students, and a whole host of ASU faculty for their unending support and expertise while creating this exhibit and summit. This would not have been possible without them. At the start of this venture, the phrase I often use was that supply chain managers are the new abolitionists, and I still believe that. But now I see that the circle of influence is much broader and stronger than that. Today, meeting together, we have scientists, industry leaders, organization heads, innovative nonprofits, emerging professionals, scholars, researchers, and concerned community members. You are exactly who we need to discuss this topic with. My hope for this summit and exhibit is to elevate the important work you are all doing and help deepen society's conversation on fair labor practices. Businesses can halt exploited labor. You have the influence to choke out entire slave industries in whole regions with one business negotiation. You can halt the supply of vulnerable populations and curb the consumption of unethical products. You influence policies, conduct audits, halt the production, and demand supply reform. You put the power in the fair trade stamp, and through your integrity, uphold its meaning. I am very optimistic for the future. When asked why our era could change something like slavery that has existed for a century, my answer was technology. Never in our world's history have we had smartphones, and giving a common voice to many global platforms and networks for instant video and messaging, with the massive data analytics and computing power to manage it effectively. Because of mobile connectivity, survivors can use hotlines to help themselves. Farmers have access to real-time market conditions to avoid price scams, and communities are becoming more aware that we needn't depend on slave labor to thrive economically. Consumer power has never been so high. 2020 was difficult, but she showed us what was possible. Countries pursued better trade agreements and peace agreements. People pivoted to build entirely new businesses and marketing strategies overnight. Brand loyalty lessened as consumers were more intentional in their purchasing, and social justice reformation pressed forward in a myriad of ways. I hope that we lead this new year forward with the confidence from the lessons we have learned and benefit from this summit's collaborative opportunities together. The principles and policies from these leaders are paralleled across industries, and I'm eager to hear and learn from them.
chat so that it's there as well. And then Kelly, remind me what that hashtag is for posting your participation in the 28 days.
Hashtag 28 days of good.
Awesome. So that is how you can share. Oh, it's right there on the screen. I wasn't looking. I was too distracted by saucy wrens outside of my window. So with that, I will thank you all for participating and for sharing with us today. It was really great to see everybody experiencing nature journaling and thinking about how we can do more of that. Yep, that's about it. Contact information for us is on the Hyperdoc. So if you want to get in touch with me or Molly, just click the Rob and Melanie Walton Sustainability Teachers Academies and you will find us on that website. And with that, we'll let everybody go. Thanks so much for joining us today.